This workshop is about Canvas tips and tricks. In this workshop, we'll look at some of the lesser known and maybe underused features in Canvas. What if grades are only available to students? When a student goes to their course and clicks on the Grades tab, they see a list of all available assignments and their grade for those assignments if they've been graded. If something hasn't been graded, the students can put in what's known as the what if grade and see how that grade would affect their overall grade in the course. The student can pick an assignment and enter a grade and see how that grade affects the total score in the course. It has no impact on their real grade, but it gives them an idea of what they would need to do, how they would need to score on certain assignments to get the grade that they want in your course. Muting grades is something we highly recommend teachers take advantage of. In a normal situation, you might go in and you might be grading papers, and each time you enter a grade into the gradebook or through SpeedGrader, a notification gets sent out to that student. Let's say you have 25 or even 50 papers to grade. That might take you a couple days to get through all those assignments. Your students who already received their grades are going to know that you're done grading. Other students might be upset because they haven't got a grade yet. Or it might be a case of you've gone through all the grading and you realize, oh shoot, I was pretty hard, or I wasn't hard enough on those students at the beginning and I need to go back and regrade those. If you would do that without muting the grades, a student is going to continue to get notifications every time you enter a grade into the gradebook. Muting it simply means that that assignment's locked for the students, grade-wise, so they won't get a notification every time you change the score. Once you unmute the assignment, then a notification would go out to the students. To mute an assignment, you can do it two ways. You can either go into the gradebook, pick the assignment, click on the drop-down arrow, and just say mute. You'll get a little message, and you can say mute it. Or I can go to the actual assignment itself, go to SpeedGrader, and in the top left corner, there's a little bell, and you can also mute from here. So it's got a line through it right now. That means it's muted. When I've graded everybody's papers or submissions, when I'm ready to send those grades out, I would just click on that again, and it's going to tell me I'm ready to unmute the assignment, and that's all there is to it. In the gradebook, assignments are listed based on the order that they are listed on the Assignments tab. If I want to change that order in the gradebook, I just need to click on the assignment and drag it wherever I want it. Has no impact on the Assignments tab, has no impact on the way things show up for the students, but for your own purposes, you can drag those assignments wherever you'd like them. Staying in the gradebook, if I have a long list of assignments, it might be kind of cumbersome to have to slide over to try and get to the total column. If I hover over the total column, I'll see there's a drop-down arrow and an option to move it to the front. By clicking that, that puts the total column in the front, and maybe it's not so hard to see that, or it's less cumbersome to get to that number. One of the features that I really like in the gradebook, but I don't think most people take advantage of, is the ability to message students. I can go to an assignment, click on the drop-down arrow, and say message students who. I'm then going to get a list of options, so I can filter by students who haven't submitted yet, students who haven't been graded, students who scored less than, or students who scored more than. So I can say scored less than 10. So who failed this assignment? Oh, test student 6. Any students who fit that criteria would be populated here. I can enter a subject, I can put in a message, hit send. This is going to blast out a message to those students saying, hey look, maybe you didn't do so well in this last exam. Why don't you get in touch with me? We can talk about where you're having problems. Or even you can use it as a way for positive reinforcement and say, message students who scored more than, and say, hey look, you guys did a great job on this exam. Keep up the good work. Canvas is going to send out an individual message to these students, so there's no FERPA issues. They won't have any idea who else got the message. But it's a really quick and easy way to let Canvas do some of the dirty work for you and filter out students by certain criteria, and then you can hit them with a message and maybe increase that instructor to student interaction in your course. Occasionally we'll get requests from faculty. They need to know, if they've had a student who's dropped the course, they need to know when that student was last active in the course. All you have to do is click on the People tab, and anyone who's in that course is going to be listed here. So if it's after the first week, maybe the first 2 weeks of the course, students don't actually get pulled out of the course, they just go to an inactive state. So if you need to see their information, you click on the People tab. They're going to be listed here. They have a little note next to them that says inactive, and I can see, the last time they were in here was April 19th. If for some reason you would need to see their grades, Canvas will, by default, they're going to hide that student so they don't confuse you in the gradebook. But if you said, I need to go in and I need to see what their grade was when they dropped, I could go to the gradebook, click on this gear icon in the top right corner, and say Show Inactive Enrollments. Now any students who are inactive are going to pop up in the gradebooks. You see test student 6 is here, with a little note that says inactive, and I can look at all the stuff they had submitted before they dropped the course. Let's say I'm teaching a course and maybe I have misentered some grades, or I'm co-teaching a course and somebody who was teaching misentered some grades or deleted some grades, and you need to look and see a history of the grading. You can go to the gradebook, click on the gear again on the top right corner, and say View Gradebook History. This screen is going to show me every time and date that a grade was changed, what the grade was before, what it is after, what it currently is. There's all sorts of filtering options up at the top. So if you ever have an instance where you maybe need to look back and say, what was that grade before I entered that? I put the wrong grade in the wrong student's gradebook. You can check here and look and see what the grades were before. Canvas offers you the ability to group your assignments into subgroups. This might be helpful if you're using weighted grade categories, but it's a nice organizational tool. So I could say I want all my quizzes in a quiz group, I want all my reflection papers in a reflection group, I want all my discussions in a discussion group. So it's organized on your assignments page, but it also, if you go to the gradebook, will put subcategories at the end of your gradebook. So you can say, oh look, in your assignments you're doing really well. In your quizzes you're not doing so well. In the discussions you need to raise your grade. Again, it's sort of an organizational tool. Even if you're not using the weighted gradebook part, this can be really handy. If I go to Course Settings and scroll down just a little ways, there's going to be a category called Grading Scheme. Check the box. It's by default is turned off, so I can check it and say Enable Course Grading Scheme. Click the link that says View Grading Scheme, and I can see what the grading scheme is for my course. By default, the Canvas grade scheme is going to be really lengthy. It's going to be A minus, B plus, B minus, so on and so forth, all the way down to F. This is one that I've already set up, but if I needed to edit this, I could just click on the pencil, go in, and I can change the category, the letter grades. I could put anything I wanted in here, really, and then put in the low end of the score, and it will automatically adjust all the scores below it. So if I put in, this is actually an 85, it adjusted everything below that. One of the benefits of doing this is that if I have a grade scheme set up, and I go to the gradebook, it's going to show me the letter grade with the grade total. So test student Bill has a 93%, which is an A. Test student 6, not doing so well. A couple of things you can do inside of a rubric. The first one is, let's say I've built a super complicated and detailed criteria. So I have my description, and this one isn't all that complicated, but I've set everything the way I want it, and I know that the rest of the rubric is going to follow the same pattern. Maybe have the same points, maybe have the same rating descriptions. I can come in here and say add new criterion and duplicate it. Say I want to duplicate that first one, update, and it gives me an exact copy of the criteria that was listed before it, or whichever one I chose. All I have to do now is go back, change my description, maybe adjust the points, but I can just keep doing that all the way down the rubric until the thing is built. One of those steps that I think a lot of instructors maybe overlook is this box right down here, which says use this rubric for assignment grading. By checking this, this means that when I go to SpeedGrader and I use the rubric and I enter scores, those scores are going to get pushed over to the gradebook. If I don't check this box, I can do whatever I want to that rubric in SpeedGrader, but that total score is not going to be sent to the gradebook. So you want to make sure that this is checked. If I'm creating an assignment which is going to utilize Turnitin, and I want to use a rubric in SpeedGrader with that assignment, I need to set the rubric up first before I turn on Turnitin. So in this case, I've set up an assignment. I've made it a file upload submission. The type doesn't really matter as long as you don't choose Turnitin to start with. Create my assignment. I can add my rubric. That one looks great. Create it. I can now come back into my assignment, change the settings from whatever I had chosen, and make it a turned-in assignment. And everything should be good. One thing I would recommend doing is including a downloadable copy of your rubric and just put it in the instructions for the assignment, because students won't see that rubric that you've attached. They would just go directly to the turned in part of the assignment. But if you include it in the instructions, then they can at least see how they're being graded. One of the most common issues we see pop up is that you, the instructor, have an assignment. So in this case, we'll use this one, sample turned in with rubric. And you say, you know what, I'm not using that this semester. Notice it's still published, but I'm just going to pull it out of the module. And that's good, the students won't see it. Wrong. I would say a good rule of thumb is that anything that is published, students will find a way to see it. So while we've pulled that assignment out of the module, it's still alive and well in the Assignments tab. Right here. Now, while students may not have access to the Assignments tab, if that assignment had a due date, it's going to show up on their course calendar. It's going to show up in their to-do list. Even if it doesn't have a due date, it's going to show up on the course syllabus page. So even though I've pulled it out of the module, students still have access to it. Right? So rule of thumb, if you have items in your course, quizzes, discussions, assignments, pages, anything that you don't want students to see, unpublish it. Because like I said, rule of thumb, if it's published, they will find a way to get to it. They're not maliciously looking for something, but they'll stumble across it, and then suddenly you have a student saying, Mr. Schrader, there were 2 exams listed for this week, and I took one, but I don't think it was the right one. And now you have a whole other list of problems to worry about. In quizzes, Moderate this quiz, which is available from the quiz homepage, might be the most useful link in the course, well, at least regarding quizzes. From that screen, from the Moderate Quiz screen, I can add an attempt to a user. Oh, Bill took it once, something went wrong. I can click on the pencil icon, say, oh, he deserves one extra attempt. If this student needed an accommodation where they get time and a half or some sort of time extension, I could put that in here. He gets an extra 15 minutes. Manually unlock would mean if the quiz is locked, you're outside of the exam window, the students wouldn't need you to unlock the exam for them. They could just click on the quiz and take it. So you can add an attempt, you can add time. You'll notice here that the timer is ticking, and so this student is currently taking the exam. Now you might run into an occasion where the student's having some sort of technical problem and they lost 5 or 10 or 15 minutes or whatever the case is on their exam. Or they start taking it and you realize that you forgot to give them time and a half. Now if I went to the pencil icon and said give them an extra 30 minutes, that's great, except that gives them extra time on the next attempt, not the current one. If a student is taking a quiz and it's in progress, I come over here to the timer, click on the clock. Now I can give them extra time, so I can say end the quiz 15 minutes from now or from the current end time, so that would give them an extra 15 minutes. That's the only way you can add time to a quiz that's in progress. One other thing to note about it is once a quiz has submitted, there's no way to open it up and let the student continue that quiz or exam. It's submitted, you give them another attempt, they're going to open up that exam and it's going to be completely blank. They're going to have to start all over. So ideally, if there's an issue and if you can catch it while it's still going, you can always add more time to it. Now, if there's no time limit, students can navigate from the quiz as many times as they want, assuming you don't have Lockdown Browser turned on or anything like that. So the first thing to look at as far as your course settings is if you click on the Settings tab, scroll down, there's an option down here called More Options. We won't go through all these, but basically just go through them and make sure that they're set how you want them and not just with the default. If you set them up in the past and you've copied the course over, you should be fine. But always double check to make sure they're what you want. I would say that one of the more common ones is faculty want students to be able to attach a document to a discussion. Well, if you don't check this box, students can't do that. There's a couple other things on here you want to be aware of, but just make sure you look at them and see that they're actually the things that you want. Also in the course settings area is a link over here that says Validate Links in Course. If I click on that and say Start Link Validation, or in this case restart it, it will scan every link in the course and tell me if that link is working or it isn't working. Always good to do this before you start the semester, or even maybe periodically through the semester, because if you're linking to an outside website, maybe that site's changed and your link's no longer good. But this is a good way to catch it before your students get in there. Another good way to look over things is using the student view. So I can click on Course Home. There's a button here that says Student View. I can go to Course Settings, click on Student View. Either way, it takes me to the same place. Now I can go through the course and see it as a student would see it. This might be where I see, oh, something's not published, or it is published. Either way, I would recommend doing this before you open the course to your students. One of the other things to take note of is when you copy a course from semester to semester, or whenever you're doing it, you get a little log of what's happened. So we copied this course on January 22nd. It says completed. Now, a lot of times it's going to say 22 issues or errors. Most people just ignore those. Don't ignore them, right? That is something wrong with the course. It could be a broken link, a broken image, something. If you copy a course and you see an error message here, click on it, see what it is, try and fix it. Okay, because for some reason you've managed to stick around through this entire video, we're going to throw in some bonus tips for you. The first thing we're going to talk about is the calendar. When you click on the calendar from the global navigation on the left, you're going to see your calendar. You'll have access to all of your calendars for the specific courses that you're in. And a lot of you teach a ton of courses, so you're going to have a ton of courses shown here. It can be kind of cumbersome to go through and try and figure out which one am I looking at, which one don't I want to see, do I want to see that one? I'm not sure if that's the right one. But if I go to my course, the course I want to look at specifically, over on the right hand side, right here, there's a little link that says View Calendar. You can also get there from Course Settings and right there, Course Calendar. If I click on that, it takes me back to that calendar page, but every other course has been deselected and I'm only looking at the one specific course that I want to see. So, it really is a handy shortcut. If you're teaching a lot of courses at once and you really use the calendar, it's an easy way to just see the information you want to see. The next two tips have to do with editing in the rich content editor. So it could be a content page, a discussion, an assignment, whatever. Anything that has the rich content editor. If I go into editing mode and I click inside this box, and that's the key. You have to click inside the box first, and I click on Alt F9. I get this hidden menu right above the Rich Content Editor toolbar. Almost all these things are listed in some way, shape, or form in this existing toolbar, but this just spells them out, not with icons, but with words. So if you'd rather see certain things, you can do that. Sometimes I think it's easier to embed media from these links, but that's a personal preference. So that was Alt F9. The other one is if I click Control K, I can insert a link with that command. So I type in my URL, text to display, I can give it a different title if I want to, and click OK. It adds the link for me. It also, so you remember that title I put in newspaper, it puts that title in for me. So, it's just a shortcut to put in a link to a page, but it can be pretty handy. Instead of highlighting, clicking on link to a URL, did I get the whole thing or not? Just another way of doing that. If I have a template set up for an assignment, let's say it's a paper submission or a basic template set up for discussions or a content page, I can go to those respective tabs, assignments, pages, discussions, and I can actually duplicate those items. So I go to the item, click on the menu and say duplicate. Once I do that, it gives me an exact copy of whatever was in that assignment. Directions, due date, rubric. So like I said, if you build a good template, maybe leave the directions blank or whatever you want to do, you can knock out a bunch of those right away and just go in and fill in the details that change from item to item. How many times have you been working on a content page, maybe trying to build a table, adding an image, editing the text. You save the page, and the first thing you say is, what did I do? It doesn't look right. Formatting is all weird. And then immediately you think, how much time did I waste on that, and how do I fix it? One of the sort of underused features of Canvas is if I go to that page, and next to Edit, there's a little menu, and say View Page History, I can see every single time that page was saved. So I know that, oh, this is today's version. Yeah, that wasn't really what I wanted. This is the one I wanted. So I click on the date, see the one I want, click this where it says restore this version, and like magic, it's sort of undone all the changes I made. Again, it only works if you've saved the page, but it is very, very helpful if you're doing a lot of heavy duty stuff and you mess up something and you don't really know what you did to mess it up. So our last tip or trick is if you go to your course homepage, go to the URL bar. So I'm going to have to drag this down. Go behind the course number, / type in undelete, and hit enter. I now see everything, well, most things that have been deleted in this course. So maybe you're setting up assignments and you accidentally delete the wrong one, or a discussion, or a page, or about anything except exam questions and maybe an external URL. Most of the rest of the things that you delete get caught in this undelete section. So let's say, oh, I really wanted this assignment, accidentally deleted it. I go to undelete, I find it, and I click restore, and just like that it's back in the course. It actually even catches if you delete a live assignment. So students have already submitted, you've graded it, you accidentally deleted it. If you click the restore, the majority of the time submissions come back, grades come back, everybody's happy. I can't promise it's going to work 100% of the time. I can't promise that it's going to catch every single thing that you delete in your course. But if you do somehow make that mistake and you immediately get to panic mode, try going to undelete, and there's a good chance it's going to be here. That's the end of the workshop. Thanks again for taking the time to sit through and watch this. Be sure to look for other fascinating titles such as Canvas Communication Tools or Canvas Groups, or everybody's favorite online course evaluation rubric, the OSER. Ooh. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thanks for watching.